Orleans is a city full of charm, but it can be a city full of harm. It's a city enriched with multicultural influence, music, art, and festival. However, wrapped around the city's colorful history is a dark chain of tragic and evil events. Stories of war, natural disasters, a murderous socialite, riots and lynchings, and even the legend of the infamous Axeman murders. In 1918 to 1919, New Orleans was terrorized by a faceless, axe-wielding serial killer who broke into the homes of Italian immigrants and attacked them with an axe. The city called him the Axeman of New Orleans. To this very day, his legend remains, and the whereabouts of his identity still remain unknown. Who was the Axeman of New Orleans? Why did he only target Italian business owners? Was he really a demon? How does this story come to an unusual ending in Los Angeles? And does his spirit still haunt a famous hotel courtyard in the French Quarter? This is the true crime and paranormal aftermath of the Axeman of New Orleans. Hey guys, welcome back to Hollyweird Paranormal. We're your hosts, Tammy Merhab-Chavez.
Hello, I'm Bryce Mitchell-Williams.
And welcome for Episode 7. We're going to be talking about the Axeman of New Orleans, or for some of you guys, New Orleans, God, my worst favorite is Nolans.
Oh, does anyone actually say it like that?
Yeah, it's the people that are not from there.
Oh, interesting.
I'm originally from New Orleans, and yeah, you hear me how I'm pronouncing it, New Orleans, and every time I tell people that, I get one of three things. Oh, Hurricane Katrina.
Oh.
I'm like, you do know that was 13 years ago. Yeah, but how are you guys grabbing my hand? We're still underwater. Can't you believe that?
I know. We're the new Atlantis.
I know. We are like the movie It. Come float with us. Down here we float, you know. Literally, down here we float. Ooh. So, and then the other one is the old, like, the baby boomers. Mm-hmm. When I tell them this, they start singing that one song, There Is a House. I'm like, please don't say it in New Orleans.
Oh,
I'm like,
no.
Jesus. Yeah.
Yes, I've heard of that
I've heard
song.
of that song.
Thank you.
Thank you for singing, serenading that for me.
In my face, yeah.
In my face. Like, okay. And then the last one is, New Orleans. You mean Nolans.
Ugh.
Nolans. Is that how you guys say it? Do you guys, like, say it like that? Exactly like that? I'm like, do you hear me saying it?
No,
like
I'm saying it like this.
Yeah. Unless you're local, like, we call it NOLA. That's the new term now. It's all NOLA. Mm-hmm. It's NOLA this. You either name your dog NOLA, you name a cafe NOLA, you name a beer NOLA, you name a new restaurant NOLA. There's NOLA Bean, NOLA News, NOLA.com. Yeah. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
I think I have 5 friends from there who have named their pets NOLA.
That's adorable.
It's adorable. I know. I wanted to have a puppy and name him Nola, but it's like already taken.
I wanted to have a beer and name it Nola. That's lovely.
This is Nola.
Your dog? No, my beer.
My beer. It's Nola.
That's so interesting. I think that's true of any, like, city with a heritage. Like, right, New Orleans is such, like, everyone associates it with Mardi Gras, so it sort of has this, like, mythos beyond.
Yes.
So there is, like, that thing of, like, oh my god, like Vegas, you know, any of those big cities that have like a personality. Yeah, people just impose, like, whatever they've seen on, like, a movie.
Exactly.
Like, no, I lived there. It's like, it's a city.
It's a city. Like, we live there. We don't party every single. Well, we kind of do.
Yeah, well, sure.
I mean, don't get me wrong, and I always tell people this too, like. In the intro, I even mentioned New Orleans is a city full of charm, but it's also a city full of harm.
Yeah.
Like, you got to have very strong spidey senses. And when I tell people that are traveling there, they're like, oh my God, we're going to get so wasted. I'm like, okay, look, let me tell you something. Like, New Orleans, great city. It's a great, awesome city. But the thing is, it could be a very rough city. You don't ever ask a random stranger out on a random street for directions.
Yeah.
You don't ever ever go west of Bourbon Street unless you want to be beaten and robbed, or both.
Ooh.
So yeah, like now, because I go to New Orleans every single summer for my birthday. I spend time with my family.
I love it.
I go and try out the new restaurants and bars with my friends. Yeah, we party, but we're smart about it.
You have to be.
You have to be very smart. And I know that there's been a new string of crime where thugs are going into cafes during the day between the hours of noon and 3, and they'll rob the cafe. They'll rob the patrons and they'll rob the cafe.
What?
You can be sitting down having your coffee, and this group of guys, masks and weapons in hand, will barge in and rob.
Oh my God, that is so brazen.
It's gotten really bad, and it's even reached to the little like suburban areas outside of New Orleans. Even my sister's area, she lives in Lakeview. My mom lives in Metairie. I was even reading NOLA.com because I always read it religiously online once a week just to, figure out what's going on in my city. And sure enough, there's like, oh, a murder happened down the street, from my mom's house.
Oh my God,
like, it's
that's
really
terrible.
bad. It's really bad. But, as long as you have your spidey senses and, you're smart, you'll be fine.
Can I just say that if someone tried to rob me, I would give them my money in a heartbeat. But if they tried to take my coffee, they would have to kill me. They would have to kill. Like, you can have my money, you can have like my shirt, like whatever. But if you try and take this cup of coffee,
excuse me.
Yeah, like you're gonna need to. You better make sure you kill me because, there's no way.
Bitch, better have my coffee.
Yeah, I mean, this little old woman tried to cut me in line at Starbucks today, and it got pretty hayfy pretty quick.
No
Oh,
way.
Yeah, girl. So I feel like my spidey sense is tuned into that, but also a little like, fight me. Maybe I shouldn't go to New Orleans.
No, I think you'll settle in really
great.
well.
Oh my God.
You already have like the brazenness for it. So.
Oh, perfect. Oh my God.
But I will say, Bourbon Street is like Las Vegas on bath salts. That's all I can say.
That's amazing.
It's on bath salts. But I love it when people, when they ask me, well, do you have a scary story of New Orleans? Like zombies. I'm like, girl, let me tell you about a story about zombies. They're called tourists from the Midwest that come to Bourbon Street. They're shirtless. They're wandering, drunk. They have the Pat O'Brien's hurricane red mustache, and part of it like got all over their chest, and they're staggering. To me, that is the nastiest of the zombies.
Really, though? Oh. It's so interesting. As someone who came from the Midwest, I was always like, no, we're like not that bad. And now that I've lived in Los Angeles for enough time, I don't think, in some ways it is home, but I always know that I'm not a local Angelino. But man, do tourists get on my nerves now. Like, they're sort of like bright-eyed road blockage, essentially. They're always in your way.
Why we have traffic.
Yeah, they're always kind of in your way, and they're like not kind of aware of like the situations around them.
Right.
To their own detriment of safety. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, that does now drive me crazy. So I think I'm like in that weird in-between zone. Like, I'm not a full tourist anymore.
No.
Or like a visitor. Like, I do feel like an Angelino in some ways, but then there are other times, like you're saying, where it's just still like, no, you're not from here.
You're definitely not from
Because
here.
I would have a red mustache for sure. Oh, for sure.
We've all been there, especially when you go to New Orleans. You just don't know any better. I always tell people to like avoid Bourbon Street. Go to Frenchman, go to Hotel Monteleon, and get the Sazerac.
Ooh.
What's that? That is a local drink, baby, and that's what we drink over there.
That
Sazeracs,
sounds
our beers,
amazing.
everything. Oh, I miss it. Every summer I go there, and I'm always introduced to something new.
I love it.
Or I'm an OG, and I kick it with my Sazerac.
Yeah.
You heard me, baby.
Yes.
All right, guys. So let's cut the banter with an axe and get into this meat of the story. Yeah, you like that?
That was very
okay.
good.
How about another one? Let's cut into the meat of the story with an axe.
Let's slice right into it.
Let's slice right into it. All right, guys. So we're going to be talking about the Axeman of New Orleans. And first off, what we're going to do is we're going to paint a little picture of what New Orleans was before all this partying in Bourbon Street and Pat O'Brien's hurricanes. We're going to talk about how New Orleans was as a city in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And then Bryce is going to take us through a little walk with what happened between 1918 and 1919. Who were these victims of the Axeman, and including a letter.
Yes, a little dance with the devil.
A little dance with the devil, indeed.
Ugh.
And then we're going to talk about, possible suspects and motives. And then, of course, what you all have been waiting for, the paranormal aftermath. There is a picture that has been circulating on Creepypasta. And if you follow us on Twitter and Instagram, we have posted this picture. And it is what some claim to be the Axeman of New Orleans walking into his final victim's home, which is Michael Pepitone. So we'll discuss that and the courtyard that claims to have hauntings. And they claim that it's the spirit of the Axeman. So we'll go into that. Right now, we're going to paint a little picture of New Orleans, guys. So here's a little preface. During the 1880s, New Orleans is a port town. Okay, so you have all of these immigrants coming to this port town. You have Italians, you have Irishmen, you have Haitians, you have a few Dutch, you have Spanish and French. So you have a lot of Italians during this time migrating into New Orleans. They're, entering the city for a better life. They're leaving Sicily due to oppression. So they were not well liked. Their entrance was not well welcomed. And they were constantly being ridiculed and even beaten on the streets, mainly by Irishmen. But things take a very violent turn in October of 1890. So according to an article on NOLA.com, on the night of October 15th, 1890, a group of unknown assailants wielding shotguns cut down New Orleans Police Chief David Hennessy.
All
right, you picked the wrong person for one thing, as he was heading down his Basin Street to his Girard Street home. Now, returning fire, but failing to strike any of his attackers, the chief of police collapsed in the street, and the sound of his gunfire alerted his friends who were nearby, and they rushed to his aid. So when they asked the badly wounded Hennessy who attacked him, this is just legend, but legend has it he said Dagos. And then Hennessy dies the next day due to his injury. So if you do not know what a Dago is, it's a disrespectful term to identify a person of Italian descent. It's really bad. So a trial followed with 9 Sicilian assailants soon after, but they had been acquitted. But police had returned them to the parish prison on Marius Street. The site is now part of Armstrong Park, which is off of Rampart, because they all had other outstanding charges against them. But the mob encountered little resistance from the police who were guarding the prison. And it's like the priests were like, well, we're not seeing anything.
Wow.
Yeah, because, you had the chief of police attacked and then he died. So the police is like, we're looking the other way.
Wow.
Make your way into the station, why don't you? So the mob goes in. They end up finding the 9 assailants, and they shoot them down. All 9 of them, they shoot them down. And they also shot a shipping magnate, J.P. Macheka. So by 1905, almost half of the French Quarter's population was Italian-born or second-generation Italian. As the Italian population boomed, so did the need for protection. Underground families and communal organizations emerged, birthing the first mafiosos in U.S. history. And we'll touch on them soon because they are a part of this investigation. So what some may not know is that these axe murders that happened in 1918 to 1919 may have started earlier.
Yes.
So between 1911 and 1912, a string of similar axe-related murders occurred throughout New Orleans, and they thought to be a prelude or a prologue to the later events. Multiple couples, all of Italian descent, were battered to death during the night, and it was believed that the Italian mafia had hired an individual to perform these killings throughout New Orleans and even parts of Texas. And this individual also uncovered a fascination for murdering people in a grim and bloody manner, using an axe. And then we hit 1918 and we just entered World War I, and then we have the murders.
Yes. Oh, that is too much. Yeah, and that's such a good point. I love that you brought that up, of just like that there are some that were earlier, but that it almost is like this weird progression. So like with this first one, Joseph Maggio is the first victim that they absolutely attribute to the axe murderer, but sorry, your husband just walked by in my peripheral vision and scared me so.
Did he have an axe?
He did not. Thank goodness.
I'm sure you can smell his axe perfume.
Oh, that's why I was so scared.
No, he's fancy like that. He doesn't wear that.
No, I'm just such a little jittery bunny. No, and so what I was going to say before I got terrified is that there's this progression of, and so that's why they have a little bit of trouble, I think, with the earlier murders that they probably were occurring before 1918, but that because he was using different methods than what like the quote unquote axe murderer victims were attacked with,
right,
they don't necessarily assign them to him. And so this first one, Joseph Maggio, is the first official victim of the 12. And so what happened is that he and his wife Catherine in May, they are found and a killer broke into their home and actually cut their throats. So this is a little bit different from what will then come, but they were cut with a straight razor, like how a barber would use, and then they were bludgeoned with an axe. So it's kind of this weird hybrid killing, and what they think is that they were, the cause of death was the straight razor, and then as an attempt to try and cover the cause of death, they were then attacked post-mortem with the axe, which I find so calculating and creepy. Like, you already did the deed, and now you're gonna go back and like bludgeon a corpse, and her neck specifically was so heavily damaged that she was nearly decapitated. Like, her head was barely attached to her shoulders. So, like, again, this starts, and there's sort of a heightened aggression towards the women victims as opposed to the male victims.
Yeah, because she got the worst part of it.
Yes, it was. I mean, he was also killed.
Oh my gosh.
But, and so then this is where it gets like, so this first one really sets off like a lot of dominoes in motion.
So people think it's an Italian barber lumberjack.
It's terrifying. And what happens is that it's actually Joseph Maggio, his brother, is the one that found them because they shared like a wall. They like lived next door to each other, which, can you imagine finding your sibling like in that
that state? Yeah,
just how heartbreaking. And he actually told police that the razor that was then found later, so like the police totally bungle this. Like they don't do a search of the area right away.
Awesome.
The bodies had been removed before they even do like a sweep of the perimeter. They find both the axe and the razor that was used in different parts of the yard, and the brother is like, oh, that's Joseph's razor. He owned a barber shop, and he had taken it with him a few days prior to the murder because it had like broken or something. And so this starts, and the weapons are mostly owned by the victims. It's not someone who has their own weapon. They go to the places, and then this man uses what he has to do the deed. So this first weapon, and because of that, his brother, Joseph's brother, is then like the main suspect because he knew what the murder weapon was, why it was missing from the barber shop. He was the first to find them, and it starts this string of like, it's this weird thing where like they can't figure out who it is, and like the bumbling sort of like tiny little mistakes create these giant loopholes for the actual Axeman to slip through.
Right.
So they, you know, of course it's not his brother. He's blamed, but he has an alibi, and there was several people that saw him, and he was so intoxicated from the night before that he slept at the bar he was at and didn't leave that bar until the next morning. So there was no, like, he had witnesses, thank God, because he was like the number one suspect.
He was a staggering zombie.
He was. He had a red mustache, 1918. And so because of all of that, he didn't find them for like 2 hours. And then like he could hear, and this is so graphic, but he could like hear moaning through the wall. And when he went to find them, they had like died essentially. And like because of his intoxicated state, like, he couldn't get to them in time, which is so sad. So those are the first two victims. And again, that is treated as just a one-off because this is the first. So then The next one is Louis Besummer and Harriet Lowe. Those are the next two victims. And again, it's this thing of the incident is so quick and so violent, but then the dominoes that it set into motion are so chaotic that it creates just the perfect veil of chaos for these murders to continue. So Louis Besummer is a grocer, and he and Harriet were attacked in the back of the store, and he is hit in the head, and then she is actually, so he's hit in like the temple, so it's like a pretty fatal, and then she is clipped on the ear.
Oh shit.
I know. So again, and she loses consciousness, and then they're found later that next morning by the bread delivery to the store. So again, the guy who was delivering the bread is the prime suspect because he's the one that found them, and
always
it's
like that. The person that finds the bodies is the number one suspect.
Yes, and again, the axe belonged to Besummer, and it was in the apartment above the stairs. So it's like all these things that look like, well, someone must have known, like this bread guy is the delivery every week. He would know to like put it in their home. He would know he had an axe. He's the number one. And he's cleared, again, has an alibi. And then they arrest, again, the only reason I'm bringing up all of these like false victims is because it just spreads this wide, chaotic energy through the city of like there's no definitive suspects, and it just gets more and more outlandish, and people are getting more and more afraid. So they arrest, after they clear the bread deliveryman, they arrest Louis Ubicon, and he was a 41-year-old African-American who worked for Louis Besummer at the store. And so,
of course, blame the brother.
Literally.
Blame the brother.
So you had mentioned with all of the, there's all of these groups melding in this city, and the racism is rampant.
Yeah, everyone's against everyone. Everyone hates the Irish, the Italians, the African Americans.
Everybody.
The Haitians, the French. They're all like...
The lines have been drawn, and you don't cross them.
Yeah, you'd never cross those lines.
And so they arrest him, and the woman said that she thought she had been attacked by a light-skinned mulatto man. That's her words, not mine. And they didn't, and they, instead of believing what she said, just said, oh no, she's in trauma. It's this black man. Like, we're going to keep him. Even though she said, like, no, that's not who attacked us. They don't believe her. So, like...
They're like, no, we think it is.
It's just, they just said that she was in a delusional state. No. Terrible.
You're a woman and you're delusional.
100%. Like...
Period.
Oh, no.
Which I believe that was the mindset back then.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we have a black man. He's definitely guilty. And the only person, like, trying to free him is a woman. Those are two unreliable sources in 1918. Like, it's crazy.
Done.
Thank God they follow a smidgen of police protocol. They don't have enough evidence, so they have to let him go. And it was not him. Or, like, obviously, like, there was no evidence against him. They just, like, pointed to the nearest black employee and like arrested him.
Oh, you did it.
It was horrible. So then it gets even crazier because they were unable to find sufficient evidence. The attention of both the media and the police turned on Besummer himself. So even though he was attacked in the temple, not in like a synagogue temple, in his head temple. As I said, I was like, wait, what's happening? They, of course, they found the axe in the apartment upstairs. So they start searching, and they find this trunk full of letters in different languages. So there's letters in German. There's letters in, I want to read it because it's like 3 really specific languages. Let me see if I can find it. I can't. So just know that one of them was German. So they think he's a German spy. As you were saying, World War I in full swing.
Here we go.
And they do. It turns into a media circus. And how many times have we seen this where it's like the media gets a hold of it and it makes it so much worse? I mean, we were talking about this in the earlier episode with the Black Dahlia. That just once they latch on to something that sells a paper, that's it. And so now this man is being accused of being a German spy, is being accused of attacking them, and then to top it all off, Harriet Lowe, who you remember from the ear chopping, regains consciousness in the charity hospital and says, oh, yeah, he's a German spy. So when she says
excuse me, ma'am, you're delusional.
No, opposite. So when it's a black man that she's trying to exonerate, she's delusional. But when it's her lover, because, twist, they're not married.
Secret love.
Secret love. I love it. Oh, my God.
Yeah, secret lovers, man.
Oh, yeah. So it's just all this chaos. And she just, like, loves the attention, I think. I mean, that's just pure conjecture on my part, but it's, like, the only way I can explain her actions of just, like, constantly being like, it's this one, it's this thing, it's this new one. Like, just loves it. So, basically, she becomes the center of a full-on media circus. Like,
It's so juicy, like... German spy, secret lovers.
I know. It's all the things of, like, 1918, 1919 that everyone's, like, afraid of. And she is just there to stir that pot.
All right.
Yeah.
You mean that gumbo pot.
I do mean that.
The gumbo pot.
I love gumbo. So she basically dies. She says that Louis Besummer is a German spy. So he's imprisoned for 9 months. And then they finally acquit him because there's, again, the only evidence is, like, that there's letters. Like, being bilingual is not a crime. And she's, like, the only person that has even said anything.
Yeah, you're
like,
screwed if you know German.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, especially the 1900s. Like, oh. So while she's in the hospital, it's found out that she's not his wife, but his mistress, and his real wife flies in from Cincinnati.
Get it, girl.
And is all like, no, this is done. Like, I don't want you having any part of this. Like, she's out of our business. She's out of our lives. She's all of it. Like, if you have to fly in from Cincinnati, like, it just got real. So, again, her arrival, like, everyone's like, it's like this gossip fodder for the entire city. So, like, she arrives and people go crazy. And then Lo, now as she's, like, kind of getting ousted by the actual wife, go figure, she starts making, like, crazier and crazier statements to kind of keep the limelight on her. And so she basically attacks the New Orleans chief of police, the new one, and says, like, it's his incompetence and that she, like, will no longer, quote, be helping with their investigation because, like, they failed her.
Yeah.
It's, like, all of these crazy things, and, like, she's just trying to prod the scandal. And basically, she has a surgery because from the initial attack of the Axeman, her one side of her face is paralyzed. She has a surgery to, like, fix that, and it goes wrong, and she actually ends up dying. Yeah, so, like, I hate to say karma, but, like, also a little bit of karma.
Oh, no.
I know.
This is what happens when you sleep with a married man.
It is.
Look, let me tell you about the South. There's that saying, keep that nickel between your knees like your mama taught you, okay?
I love it. And don't lie about black people. Like, those are the two rules. And she broke them.
Into this.
She broke them both. So that sort of ends their chapter. And again, this is so early. They are probably the most media, like, circus of the murders,
right?
But it's only the second event, so again, no one has pieced it together that there are similarities, that there's there's no connection yet. Number 3, yes, Anna Schneider is 8 months pregnant. Let that sink in. It is heartbreaking. She wakes up and finds that there is a stranger standing above her bed who then bashes her in the face repeatedly. I mean, just the audacity of attacking anyone, but on top of it, a pregnant woman.
I know. A young pregnant woman who's by herself is defenseless.
And so she is discovered shortly after midnight by her husband, which is also so heartbreaking. And because of the attacks, she doesn't remember anything. She basically has, like, trauma-induced amnesia.
Oh, my God.
And they think that he most likely beat her with the lamp from the bedside table. So, again, different weapon, but same MO of using what's in the home.
Right.
to attack the victims. And again, they're now trying to figure out, well, nothing was from any of these. They're not putting them together, but nothing from any of these attacks was stolen. Nothing was ransacked. So
That's true. That's the only consistent thing they
Yes.
have is nothing's being stolen and he's breaking into the house.
And so, again, they're not being pieced together, but the similarities are starting to stack up. And so, thank God she actually gives birth, and their daughter is healthy 2 days later. And this is the first one, because it's a break-in, like you were saying, they start to speculate, the investigators, that there is possibly a connection between what happened in the first two. So now there's been 3, and they are starting to piece together enough similarities that there's a plausible connection. Number 4. Joseph Romano was an elderly man.
Peepaw.
I know. It's like the weakest members of society are being targeted, and it breaks my heart.
Is this guy like, I need an easy go?
I think
Pregnant
so.
woman, check. Older man, mother flipping check.
Yeah.
Why not?
And he's living with his 2 young nieces.
No.
I know. So they wake and they hear a commotion. So they go into their uncle's room.
Oh, no.
And he has 2 gashes on his head, and they see a man fleeing the house, which, you know, thank God that he didn't turn on them.
Yeah, he didn't turn on them, yeah.
But even though they're very young, they actually give the first description of the Axeman. Get it, you tiny little badasses.
I know.
In that moment of fear, they
fuck with grandpa. You fuck with the grandchildren.
Don't mess with our, like...
Peepaw. You don't fuck with Peepaw.
No, and so they say it was a dark-skinned, heavy-set man who wore a dark suit and a slouched hat. So again, these are super generic things, but it's the first descriptor of any credibility that they have. And unfortunately, Joseph Romano did die 2 days later because of the severe head trauma. But the similarities are, again, super shocking. Nothing was stolen from the home, and there was a bloody axe found in the backyard. And then this is the defining MO. A panel of the door had been chiseled out, and that's how the Axeman had entered the home. So it's this very specific way, and this is the turning point. Romano's murder is where the iceberg tips. People in New Orleans lose their minds.
Oh, God.
There's enough similarities. The chiseling of the door, you know, it's not like he broke through a window. It's something very calculated. It's something very violent, and it's using the things in your own home with no motive. You're not being robbed. You're not being assaulted other than murdered, right?
Yeah.
And they are losing. The city loses their mind. And from this chaos emerges John D'Antonio, who is like my hero. He is like a white knight. He's this retired ex-inspector. He's like old school. And he's like, hold up. There's too many similarities, and this is not just unrelated. Like, all of these things, he's the one that starts piecing it together to the 1911 murders. He's the one that pieces together the first 3 incidents.
Oh my gosh.
And he's the one, even though the term serial killer is still a solid, like, 60 years from being invented, he starts putting together what will later become the characteristics that we now define as serial killer. He's like ahead of his time, and this voice of reason amidst the chaos of the city.
Okay, if there's a movie made of this story, like, who would play him? Like, who would?
Clint Eastwood, maybe?
You think so?
It has to be someone like old and grisly and just like unfazed by the gore and like the chaos around him.
Oh my goodness. Not Antonio Banderas.
No. Ooh, he's
someone like Don Antonio, you know.
So handsome.
Not Daniel Day-Lewis. He's done now.
Ugh.
He's like, I'm over it.
That's a separate podcast, but I cannot with him. So he basically says that the homicides have too many similarities, and that the potential killer is most likely an individual with dual personalities, and that he is killing without motive because he's acquired the taste for it, but that he's most likely a normal, law-abiding citizen who is then overcome by an overwhelming desire to kill.
They always are.
They always are. And he says that he is most likely a real-life Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So again, the term serial killer does not exist at this point, like in history. It hasn't been coined yet. There's not enough research. If you have not watched Mindhunter on Netflix, cheap plug.
I know.
It's all about the work that it took for modern day criminology to have these kinds of terms. So at this point, it's just this lone investigator being like, this is what's adding up. This is what I know to be true. And it gives them at least some kind of focused path to follow in their forward investigations. So the next murder,
It doesn't
I know,
stop.
it doesn't stop,
It doesn't stop.
is Charles Cortamiglia. Sorry for my amazing Italian.
Cortamiglia.
Yes. And then his wife Rosie and their infant daughter Mary. Again, the weakest, defenseless, purest parts of society.
No.
So again, another grocer. He hears the screaming across the street. He runs across and he finds this family, the Cortamiglias. Yep.
You got it.
I'm very white, in case you can't tell. And they are all, so they're in the doorway and they're covered and they're holding their daughter who has died.
No.
She was so young that she died instantly from a head wound. Charles, the husband, is on the floor. He's also bleeding. And Rosie is the only one still conscious. And again, the panel in the back door has been cut away. A bloody axe is found on the back porch of the home. Rosie then passes out. And then, again, the fear that is permeating the city takes over. She comes to, and she has just lost her child, and she starts slinging accusations.
Oh, yeah.
And the person that she accuses is the grocer who came and found them and his son. So again, the people who are discovering it become the instant suspect. She accuses them, and even though, his name, the grocer, was Orlando Giordano, and his son, Frank Giordano. Orlando was 69. There's no way he's doing these. Yes, it's ridiculous. And his son is massive. He's over 6'5". He's well over 200 pounds, and there's physically no way
that he could fit through the panel.
He could not fit through the panel. Doesn't matter. The police arrest both of them. They're sentenced. The dad is sentenced to life in prison. Frank Giordano is sentenced to death by hanging. And so this is all happening. And the husband, Charles Cortamiglia, he is disputing this the whole time. But because she's so adamant, and because the city is so afraid, and because the police are so desperate to have...
Now there's a death of a child.
There is. They won't listen. He's disputing her. It goes to trial. He testifies against it. It goes. They get convicted. He divorces his wife in protest and anger because he's so
God.
over. I mean, it's chaos. A year goes by. Thank God they don't proceed with like the hanging, but both of them serve a year in prison, and she admits that she lied, that she was in grief, and that she was jealous, and that she was angry and lashing out and just falsely accused them. So they're released immediately. Thank God.
Thank God, because I read too, they were. Well, one of them was ready to be hung.
It was so close.
It was very, very close. He was like literally at the skin of his teeth.
It was, and just because she, and again, we all grieve differently.
Yes.
Like all God's children.
I get it.
Don't accuse people in your anger. Like that's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah. It's not going to help any.
So she, so that's the Cortamiglia family. So then this is now the zenith of these murders, because now the letter.
Oh, shit. Yes.
Yes. So a letter is published in the Times, I forget what the...
Times-Picayune.
Thank you,
I
yes.
always read it with my mama whenever I go visit her in the summer.
Hey, Mama.
I know.
They publish this letter from none other than the Axeman.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm going to read this letter.
Because you are a trained actor.
I really am.
And I think, you can win an Oscar for this, can't you?
I really hope so. A podcast Oscar.
I know.
A Poscar? Ooh.
Podsker.
Ooh, I like it.
The first annual Podsker Award goes to Bryce
Thank
Mitchell
you.
Williams. Do you have a couple of words of you want to say?
I accept this on the behalf of everyone who came before me. Yikes.
Your Podsker.
Yes. So basically what happens is the newspaper publishes this letter, and when you hear the letter, there's a reason why specifically, but I'm going to read it now so you can kind of get the terror that is instilled in this city.
You're going to take us to church with this.
It's time for church.
Okay, great. Sitting at the pew.
Ooh. Hell, March 13th, 1919. Esteemed mortal of New Orleans, they have never caught me, and they never will. They have never seen me, for I am invisible, even as the ether that surrounds your earth. I am not a human being, but a spirit and a demon from the hottest hell. I am what you Orleanians and your foolish police call the Axeman. When I see fit, I shall come and claim other victims. I alone know whom they shall be. I shall leave no clue except my bloody axe, besmeared with blood and brains of he whom I have sent to keep me company below. If you wish, you may tell the police to be careful not to rile me. Of course, I am a reasonable spirit. I take no offense at the way they have conducted their investigations in the past. In fact, they have been so utterly stupid as to not only amuse me, but his satanic majesty, Francis Joseph, etc. But tell them to beware. Let them not try to discover what I am, for it were better that they were never born than to incur the wrath of the Axeman. I don't think there is any need of such a warning, for I feel sure the police will always dodge me as they have in the past. They are wise and know how to keep away from all harm. Undoubtedly, you Orleanians think of me as a most horrible murderer, which I am, but I could be much worse if I wanted to. If I wished, I could pay a visit to your city every night. At will, I could slay thousands of your best citizens and the worst, for I am in close relationship with the angel of death. Now, to be exact, at 12:15 earthly time on next Tuesday night, I am going to pass over New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, I am going to make a little proposition to you people. Here it is. I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose home a jazz band is in full swing at the time I have just mentioned. If everyone has a jazz band going, well then, so much the better for you people. One thing is certain, and that is that some of your people who do not jazz it out on that specific Tuesday night, if there be any, will get the axe. Well, as I am cold and crave the warmth of my native Tartarus, and it is about time I leave your earthly home, I will cease my discourse. Hoping that thou wilt publish this as it may go well with thee. I have been, am, and will be the worst spirit that ever existed either in fact or realm of fancy. The Axeman.
Fuck you. I'm sorry. There was some points where I'm like, fuck you.
It's both
taunting. It's taunting.
I'm speechless because it's equal parts taunting and laughable.
It is. He's using violence. It's like a hyperbolic expressions right there. That's the best way I could think of. And it just reminds me of the letters of the Zodiac Killer, Son of Sam. Yes. It's like they're using the killings, like himself, like they're using the killings as a platform and riling up the media. Like, I'm controlling and summoning up fear, and I'm controlling and summoning up the media. So, ha ha ha.
And it's so crazy because
Jazz it up.
First of all, jazz it up. Like, okay, I'm going to need you to really think about what you just said. But it's also, there's enough biblical jargon in here.
Yes.
That it's like, okay, you've clearly read the good book.
Yeah.
But, like, you're using it in these super perverse ways. Like, you're quoting, like, one of the quotes, the better had he never been born, is, like, a direct quote of Jesus, but you're using it to talk about your own murders.
Yes,
like,
he's using his killings as a platform. He's using this as a platform, which is
what a sense of self-aggrandizement. Like, ugh. Uh-huh. So gross. But then on the other hand, it's like, do you kind of just like jazz? Like, is this just like some random person like, I really wish there was more jazz?
I know. There needs to be more jazz in the city of jazz.
Yeah. Like, me.
I'm going to write a letter.
Yeah. And so this letter is, you know, again, whether or not you take it that seriously, I wonder, is it the actual person?
Yeah.
Is it someone capitalizing on the fear that's gripping the city?
Right.
Is it's any number of these things. But again, what it sets off is another media circus.
Yes.
People start taking their own ads out. They're pissed now. It riles the city up. But also, everybody does it. The jazz clubs on that Tuesday were packed. I mean, there was like historians that talked about it. It was like the busiest night, and there were no murders that night. So it's like this weird thing where people are like writing into the newspaper being like, here's where I live. I'll leave my door open. Like, he doesn't have to ruin my property. I want him to come to my house.
I will hide all the access.
Yes, they're like taunting him.
Bitch, try me.
Literally. Like, oh, come on. I'm not scared of you. But then when it comes time,
everyone
there.
is like, oh, no, we're going to party. No, we're going to have a big jazz party.
I love jazz. I wanted to be here.
I know.
No one made me come here.
Jazz it up.
Ooh, the speakeasy's amazing.
I know.
Weeping in a corner.
In a fetal position.
Yes.
Yes. So
now we shift to Steve Boca, the first murder post-letter. And this is, again, an escalation of sorts because it fits all the MO. He's found with his head cracked open. He actually is conscious and runs to his friend's house where he then collapses. And the back door had been chiseled away. And again, cannot remember. The trauma has caused amnesia.
Like I said before, the Axeman's becoming a little more sloppy. He's like, I'm going to kill all you mortals. Well, you're just whacking us aside of the head. Like, what is it? You're not doing enough, like, arm days? You're not working out and doing your arm days, dude. Come on.
And his kill count is so sloppy.
Yeah.
Because he, like you're saying, it's such a good example of just like, well, you're not as meticulous as you think you are. You're
attacking them with a very violent weapon. You're just whacking them over the head, but you're whacking them to the point of unconsciousness.
Yeah.
Like when I think of an axe, it's like, oh, you're going to like...
do some damage.
Like chop my head off or something. Ugh, don't even think about that.
So the next victim is Sarah Lohman, and she is... Neighbors come to check on her.
God, there's more?
There's more.
Fuck,
we're almost to the end, actually. So he's really wrapping it up. And neighbors come to check on her because she's 19. She lives alone. They haven't seen her. They can't get a response from her.
She's 19?
She's 19. Oh. I know. They break into her home, and she's found lying unconscious in her bed. She has a severe head injury, and she's missing several teeth.
Oh, no.
So again, another escalation. Now the teeth have started to, and they're not bashed out. They've been pulled out. So it's not like shards. It's
the
teeth.
Fuck?
Yes. Again, a bloody axe is discovered on the front lawn of the building. And she actually does recover from her injuries, but again, doesn't remember. All the details are apparently awash. Which brings us to our final murder. Our final attack. Mike Pepitone.
No.
His wife wakes up, hears the attack happening, walks in on it, and a large axe-wielding man flees the scene, and Mike is covered in his own blood, and the blood has covered the entire room. And the Axeman, where he flees, is towards the back of their home where their 6 children are sleeping.
Oh.
So she starts screaming, thinking he's going to kill their children as well. And it causes a ruckus enough that he just flees the house. Thank God. So Mike Pepitone does die and leaves Sarah, his wife, and did I say that right?
Eleonora.
Why did I say Sarah? Sarah was the last victim. Sorry.
Or Esther Pepitone.
So she is left with their 6 children.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the last of the killings. And literally within the span of the year, they start. They think there are some earlier from like 1911. But
Mm-hmm.
this spree is 1 year long. And then as soon as it starts, done.
Come on, dude.
Yep.
They jazzed it up. They even wrote a freaking song on your behalf.
Yes.
Yeah, they wrote that song, The Axeman. I think it's the Mysterious Axeman Jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And it was written by Joseph John Davila, who wrote the song following that letter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was inspired. And it was Papa Don't Scare Me. Don't Scare Me, Papa. That's what it was.
Isn't that crazy?
And it's like, dude, like, come on, man. You didn't leave much of a mark. Like,
No.
this was very violent, but it didn't, cost a lot of casualties. Like, unfortunately, yeah, we lost Mike Pepitone, but the rest of them, they were just whacked over the head unconscious.
Amnesia, but
yeah. Which is kind of odd, but you're wondering or possibly thinking, could it be maybe a copycat,
I think that is a strong possibility.
Yeah. But then again, like before the letter too, it was a string of the same assaults.
Yes.
Huh.
It's all very suspect.
Stroking my invisible beard.
Ooh, it's so majestic.
I know, or my invisible monocle.
Well, and that's, we keep hitting on these themes. How much of it is that the media circus contributes
Right.
to the chaos, and then the more published it becomes, the easier it is to mimic or to capitalize on or to benefit from. Oh, it makes me so sad.
I know. So what is his count? He's attacked how many? Like 12 people? And he's killed 5 or 6 of them so far?
Yes. I think it's just the brazenness of the, like, there's no MO or motive
Yeah.
other than the attack,
Right.
which is not always the case. You look at other actual serial killers, there's sexual elements or...
That's another thing.
So there's all these things that are like wrapped up in it.
Yeah, he had no motive. His crimes were not sexually motivated, not one bit, and robbery was never committed. The one thing I did notice is that there was always a male presence in each of the homes that he broke into.
Yes.
But it doesn't seem like he, attacked a specific person first. It was just like, oh, he'll do, or she'll do.
Yep.
Whoever is like, I feel like, whacking or beating over the head with an axe.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, because I even mentioned this to you too, I'm wondering, if maybe mafia was involved, if this was a calling card, if this was probably brought on by the male counterparts of these homes, because betting and gambling were really big in New Orleans, and it's still to this very day too. And I'm wondering if these gentlemen had, debts that they didn't pay.
Wow. Yeah.
And they, had this coming. If you don't pay up, it's going to cost you your life, or it's going to cost you the life of a loved one.
Yeah.
Or we're going to, make it look like an accident kind of thing, which it didn't. But,
well, and that I think would explain to the police response to it, because it's like in some of the instances, they are just barely following police protocol.
Yeah.
In other times, they're like just accusing whoever happens to be in the vicinity almost.
Yeah.
Then later, 2 of the lead investigators are demoted for quote unquote.
I know whatever happened with Don and Antonio.
Well, he was retired from the start, so he's just like technically he's a private citizen who just happens to have experience saying
this is fucked up, I'm piecing out, bye.
Why is no one else putting these links of the chain together? But 2 of the lead investigators were demoted for quote poor police work. But it's just like, yeah.
Like the whole,
it's
friggin'
all so
police
chaotic,
didn't do anything. Yeah.
Which I think would explain, like, again, perhaps a mob-type presence was using the cloud of fear and chaos.
That's true.
And capitalizing on it
That
to
is
execute
true.
their will. That's pure conjecture. But it could make sense.
It does.
I still think there was a person doing these things who
Mm-hmm.
was a single individual.
Yes.
But who knows, like, who was funding that? Who was motivating that? There's all these, like, loose ends that just, like, are unanswerable because of the chaos that bleeds into it.
Right. Now let's talk about these loose ends.
Let's do it.
We have suspects and motives.
Yes.
So as you heard earlier, he had no motives, the Axeman. But the things that were consistent was that he was breaking into the homes of Italian grocers. He wasn't robbing anything, and, there was no sexual motivation behind anything. It could have been a mafia hitman, or it could have been an Irish mob hitman, or it could have been something supernatural, as other people were, believing due to the media. So we look into the first suspect. We have Jake Bird. Who is Jake Bird? Here are the cliff notes of this homeboy. Jake Bird was known in the 1940s as the nation's most prolific serial killer, a drifter with no roots, born and raised in rural Louisiana. He was a transient who traveled all over the states, killing one person in almost every single state for each year of his life, from what he claimed. His victims of choice were Caucasian women. Now, he was caught for attempted murder and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon in 1947. So while he is, in custody for this, he soon confesses to all the murders. He tells the cops, I've killed all these people in all these states, all these women. They're all due to me. I murdered them. And he is immediately convicted.
Oh, my goodness.
So his trial takes up to 3 months, and they obviously find him guilty, and they sentence him to death. Now, what was so famous about this trial and why they gave him the slogan Hex of the Birdman, is that he was angry that his defense couldn't prevent him from getting the death penalty. So it was recorded that he stood before the court and said, all of you would die before me. And months after that court hearing, supposedly 5 men in that courtroom died of a heart attack, and another guy died of pneumonia. So 6 men altogether died following the months after that trial. So they called it was a hex. It was the hex of, the Birdman, Jake the Birdman. So while he was in jail, though, see, this is where it kind of gets kind of sticky. He confesses to his cellmates that he committed another 44 murders around the states, primarily in Louisiana and Texas. Wow. Then he dies in 1949 in Washington. So he really didn't specify that he was responsible for this tale of murders, but it could be possible because he was, a drifter serial killer who a majority of these deaths, these murders that he committed, was with an axe. Wow. Then, here we go, mafia. Could it be the mafia? We have 2 families that are running a mafia ring in New Orleans. We have the Provenzanos and the Matrangas of New Orleans. So these are 2 big mafia families that are actually neck and neck with one another. So these are the 2 largest and well-known Italian mobs in Louisiana. So according to Marion Davis, author of Axeman of New Orleans, The True Story. And I really recommend this book because it really goes in depth in the case. If you really want to learn more about the city, where it was, and about this case, this is one of the best books that I've come across. So during the 1900s, according to Marion Davis, New Orleans was plagued by Black Hand crimes, a form of petty extortions where the victim, most likely an Italian immigrant with a successful business, would receive a note signed with a black handprint or skull and crossbones, demanding money. So if the cash wasn't paid, then a warning would be sent out, and if that warning was ignored, the consequences ended in death, or the victim's place of business was to be burnt down to the ground. So this was creating a massive sense of fear within the Italian community, not to mention in her book, the Maggios, the first couple that were slain, they had a note like this, but it was written in chalk in front of their home.
Oh, wow.
And the message read along the lines of, I think it was like, Tom Maggio, you'll be sitting up tonight. pay Miss Plumey her cash.
Oh my God.
So that could have been a possibility, a big, big, big possibility. These mafias also had hitmen. These were sociopaths. They were getting paid to kill and to deliver very physical messages. So here you go. That is the second, group of suspects right there. Then you have this interesting twist.
I love a twist.
So I'm sure some of you guys are wondering, well, this is all based in New Orleans. How is this whole entire case has anything to do with our podcast since we're Hollywood based?
Yes.
And we're always talking about Hollywood, true crime and paranormal. Well, we have the suspect, Doc Mumphrey, and his story ends up in Los Angeles with one of the victims of the Axeman.
Ooh.
So that's why I thought
it all comes back to Hollywood.
It does. And like you mentioned in the first episode, Bryce, when you shake the nation on its side, what happens?
All the crazies shake out to the edge.
There you go. And that edge is Los Angeles over here.
And here we are.
I know. We encountered many of them off of Sunset and Hollywood Boulevard today. So many. So Doc Mumphrey here, which is what you got to know about this dude. So he has very close ties to the mafia. He's ostensibly a pharmacist, and which is why he is given, the nickname Doc. So it has always been seen as somewhat suspicious that a similar string of killings carried out in 1910 and 1911 stopped when Doc Mumphrey was in jail and began again when he was released in 1918.
That is so suspect.
It's very, very, very sketch. So the reason he was in jail was due to kidnapping and assault with a deadly weapon. Now, this is where it gets dicey. According to NOLA.com, we have Miss Pepitone. Esther Eleonora Pepitone started over. She moved with her children to Los Angeles in January of 1921, and in September that year, she became Esther or Eleonora Albano when she married Angelo Albano, who was also from New Orleans. So just before the wedding, Angelo Albano had dissolved a business partnership with another New Orleans man who was Doc Mumphrey.
No.
Who was, by the way, Mr. Mumphrey was living in San Bernardino. So Mumphrey was known by a long list of first names, including Joseph Leone and Frank, and last names among them Manfrey, Monfrey, Mumphrey, and even Humphrey.
Do not trust someone with that many names.
I know.
It's not, ugh.
I know. Even like two first names.
Oh, yeah.
I know. Don't even go there. Don't even go there.
It's not scientific,
That's a separate podcast.
It's proven.
It is. So on October 27, 1921, 2 years to the day after the slaying of Mike Pepitone, Angelo Albano left home, according to reports, humming a happy tune to buy vegetables for dinner.
No.
According to a story in Los Angeles Times, he was seen by witnesses at the market and later made a withdrawal from the bank and then was never seen again. So he disappears.
Oh my God.
I know. He's off on his way getting food for his family.
Beautiful vegetables.
I know, for his family.
No.
I could see him making some spaghetti with some, vegetable sauce or something, or maybe vegetables. No, he's probably making a pie gumbo.
Oh.
I know. Don't even.
We're very hungry.
Very, very hungry. I know, Crimsey's.
Oh, yes. Hey, girl.
I know. Crimsey, what's up? So on December 5th, 1921, about noon, Esther Albano was with 3 of her children at home at 554 East 36th Street in Los Angeles when Doc Mumphrey knocked on the door. Esther Albano then greeted him. And then, this is what reports have stated, he placed his hand on his hip pocket and demanded $500 and my jewelry, according to Esther. She later told police, he stated that if I did not give him the home, he would kill me the same way he had killed my husband. Apparently referring to Angelo, Esther Albano believes. So Esther Albano went to her bedroom and got a .38 caliber revolver.
Damn, girl.
She fired in Mumphrey's direction, missing with her first shot. As Mumphrey struggled to remove his own gun from his pocket, she fired again, hitting him this time. She squeezed the trigger again and again and again. She continues shooting at Mumphrey. Mumphrey slips down the steps because she was living on the second part of this apartment building. And after emptying the revolver, she grabbed a second revolver. And she went Khaleesi on his ass.
Wow.
She went full on Khaleesi on his ass.
That is when you know you have like crossed. Like,
the
my
line.
one revolver's done. Welcome to my second revolver.
I
Like
know.
that's damn, girl.
Bring out the second dragon right there. Empties the second revolver into Mumphrey. He slid nearly to the bottom of the steps, lifeless, and any secrets he had died with him that day. He dies on the spot.
No.
Then Esther Albano went to the grocery store next door.
Gotta get those vegetables, girl.
I know. She's like, excuse me, I need to put my revolver down, grab my bag, and go to the store. Doop-a-doo, singing a happy tune.
No.
And ask the man working there to call the police. Esther is a badass. Turns out she shoots Mumphrey 8 times. Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. To the head, chest, and abs.
Not messing around.
Motherfucking
Do
Khaleesi.
not mess with her husband or her vegetables.
Or her children. Because
those two.
Yeah, because he was like, I'm gonna threaten you. You're gonna give me your money and you're gonna give me your home, your jewelry, everything. And she's like, fuck you, bitch. Like,
wow.
I just feel, and I even put this on Instagram and Twitter. It's like I feel like the ghost of Olenna Tyrell like was talking through her. Like,
I love it.
They are sheep. You're dragon. Be a dragon.
Yes.
And she did that with her .38 pistol. So Esther is later tried for Mumphrey's murder.
Sure.
She dumps money, a whole bunch of money, into her defense and is acquitted in 1922. She ends up moving back to New Orleans, where she lives a quiet and peaceful life until her death in the late 40s.
Wow.
She's like, fuck this. I'm going to go back home.
You don't come for mama.
You do not come for mama. You do not. She was like already over the edge.
Wow.
She was already over the edge. Like, you killed my first husband if it was you. And then now you know, my second husband is gone.
Yeah.
And now you're, here to take me. Not today, Satan.
Nope.
Not today.
Mm-mm. Love it.
I know. So this is how the strange case kind of ends up in Los Angeles in this weird chain of events.
You know what I always say is that Los Angeles is the biggest little town in the world. Mm-hmm. And the fact that all 3 of them from New Orleans happen to end up living in the same general area of Los Angeles is too coincidental. That is too crazy.
It is very coincidental. When you live in New Orleans, it is 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
Ever since I've moved here, I've run into people,
everywhere.
Not only friends, but acquaintances here. I'm like, what are you doing here? I just moved here. What?
So many times I'll bump into someone from high school and I'm like, I'm sorry, what happened? It is the weirdest phenomenon in LA. And I've never experienced it anywhere else that I've lived.
It
but
is.
Like, you see people here and the connections, like you're saying, it's 6 degrees. It's honestly sometimes 2 degrees. It's so close. You're
it's
like,
so close
what
to that.
is happening? Why does this very large city feel like a high school reunion? Like, I don't get it.
It's true.
Or a murder reunion for poor Esther. Like, it's insane.
Oh my God. I know exactly how you feel. We see it and we live it every single day.
I know.
Not to mention, in a light, I met one of my closest friends here. I was working in my fancy retail job when I first lived here in the amazing world of retail. And I met one of my really good friends who moved here from New Orleans, and she overheard me telling a customer that I was from New Orleans. And, it was just that instant attraction. Yeah. And when you meet someone from Louisiana, from the South, it's forever, man. Yeah. It's like you have this kinship.
Instant connection.
It is an instant connection. And someone once told me, I'll never forget it, but the South is a place that stays in your blood and it never leaves. Yeah. It never, ever leaves. So to me, it's like, it's in the blood. It's in the blood. You imprinted on me. Yeah. So. I know.
So for you, what do you think is the most likely? Because this is an unsolved murder spree still.
Yeah.
There is no official...
It's still a cold case. I mean, whatever secrets like that this article said, whatever secrets died with Mumphrey, will never come out. It'll never, be exposed. But in my opinion, I feel that it was mafia related.
Okay.
I feel that maybe the men that were involved in a lot of these cases that were the victims or, the male counterparts in these homes that were attacked, I felt that they had debt that needed to be paid to the mafia. And I feel that the mafia hired someone who was crazy and got really caught up in attacking and murdering these people. It could have also been the Irish mob.
Oh, right.
The Irish also had a small community.
We Irish are very crazy.
You guys are, because we have an area in New Orleans. It's called the Irish Channel.
Oh, no.
And that was an Irish community back in the 1800s, but it was also a big immigrant community.
Sure.
So you had the Fighting Irish, and there were a lot of underground boxing rings back then, and there were a lot of bets. So if you think about it, maybe it could have been a bet or a gambling thing that went wrong. Yeah. Who knows? And the targets were Italian people.
Wow.
I mean, that's what I think.
Yeah.
When money and fear is involved.
Yeah. It's a deadly combo.
What do you think?
I think I'm very much on the same page with you. I think... I'm not sure if I have an opinion about which mafia it was. I think it was a mafia. I think the sort of weird element that happened is that they happened to hire a hitman who developed a taste. I think there is some acting on his own accord. I think we see that in the sloppiness as it goes on. The first ones seem much more calculated.
Yeah.
They're in places of business. They're like in and out. Again, as we go, they start seeming a little bit more random, a little bit more chaotic. And I think the letter really speaks to that as well. That doesn't seem to me like something that the mob would do. I think they were able to probably function under the shield that the letter and the chaos provided. My instinct is that it was initially, like you're saying, the mob paying someone to do these specific things, but that the retired detective, I think he was right. I think it's someone who then who developed a taste for the killing.
Yes.
So that weird Italian
barber lumberjack.
Yeah. That is a deadly combo.
Deadly.
But I think it's that close, perfect storm of like someone who is being paid to do a horrible thing.
Right.
And that mental capacity snaps and they develop a taste for it and they take it further than what was initially required. I think is somewhere that seems closest to the possibility for me.
That's a good possibility. Yeah. I agree. But who knows?
Stay out of the mob, y'all. Just don't do it. It's not worth it.
But they're like family.
Oh, well. No.
It is. It's so funny when I was reading this. I had an ex-boyfriend that lived in New Orleans, and he was also Italian. And he told me he has friends that were involved in some shady shit in New Orleans. Yeah, he didn't want to tell me these stories, so I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it, yeah.
There's a tone people get when they say certain things, and they don't have to even tell you or expound on it, but you just know. Like, oh shit, this is the real deal. They're not joking. They're not pulling my leg.
Not fucking around, man.
Like, okay. Not okay. It's so crazy.
And they're still operating to this very day.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. There was a big bust, too, in the 90s between the two families, the big mafia families in Louisiana. So, yeah, I mean, it's still an ongoing operation, I tell you that. So now, guys, let's go into the meatier part of the story. Yes. I'm sure you guys are like, oh, where's the paranormal part? Well, here it is.
They're screaming at us.
I know. They're like, get to the fucking point,
Sorry,
please.
We're long-winded.
We're going to slice into this with an axe. There you go. So some claim that the Axeman still lingers within the French Quarter in a hotel courtyard, and the haunted hotel of Ursulines is the place. I'm not kidding. That's what it's called. It's called the Haunted Hotel. When you walk past or walk towards the entrance of this place, there's a plaque that says the Haunted Hotel of Ursulines.
Me walking immediately past it.
Yeah.
Just got my little Skechers on,
like,
just mall walking
I know,
fastly.
just looking at the ground, don't look up.
Yes.
So it's a haunted hotel off Ursuline Street, and then they decided to put 2 and 2 together. So it's a stop on one of the haunted tour walks in the French Quarter, and it's said to be one of the top 3 most haunted hotels of the French Quarter, with stories of its old owner, Miss Mamie, who watches over the hotel and makes sure that its patrons treat it with respect. However, psychics have claimed to have felt another strong presence in the back corner of the hotel's courtyard.
Don't ever go to the back.
I know, never go in the dark places, man. So some claim that the spirit of a serial killer, they say it's a spirit of a serial killer. They get those vibes, hides within the shadows of the courtyard. Psychics had even seen visions of pools of blood on the courtyard ground.
Oh my God.
They feel that it's a male presence, mid to old age, hiding within the greenery. They believe that he is hiding from someone, possibly from the police, like he's on the run and he's hiding from somebody. Patrons have also felt as though they're being watched as they're sitting there, relaxing in the courtyard. They see a shadow person kind of walking back and forth in a specific corner, hiding in the back. And they also feel like a sense of fear and anxiousness. People get this sense that they're being watched, that someone is coming out to get them. That's what they feel. So psychics have also pointed out that this entity goes way, way back. So they believe that there is a connection with this entity and the Axeman. So they also claim that it's like whoever this person was committed a lot of murders. He was a criminal. That's what they get point on. They believe that he left this residue of fear in that area.
Wow.
Because it's so strong and people just don't like to hang out in the specific corner. So a lot of the paranormal investigations that do go on in the hotel, they hear a person, like they have caught EVPs and they hear a person, a male voice saying leave, kill, and axe.
No.
Yeah. And they believe that it could be the Axeman of New Orleans hiding in that courtyard. Now, it gets even better. In a May 2016 article on creepypasta.com, a picture emerged of what claimed to be the Axeman himself. And we have it posted on our Twitter and Instagram if y'all want to put this podcast on pause. And we're going to sit here, just pretty much filing our nails.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
So this picture claimed to be the work of a photographer, Edouard Martel. He's a French photographer who traveled across the USA in the early 20th century while testing his new invention, a camera with an automatic exposure setting and shutter mechanism attached to an adjustable timer. So a camera with a timer, in other words.
No.
So this photo was one of many shot by Martel's new camera, which he often hid from the public view to capture the most candid shots possible, as his subjects were usually unaware they were being photographed. So
that's not okay, sir.
I know. Like, you crossed the fucking line right there.
Did
like,
you get my waiver?
I
No.
know. Did you get my good angle? At least get my good fucking angle.
Oh, yeah. If I look good, anyone can photograph. Like, that's fine. If I look good, keep on snapping, baby.
You're like, wait, let me see it. Oh, I can't see it. It doesn't have that fucking screen. All right, never fucking mind.
You do not have my permission.
We can't delete. Fuck. All right. So the story claims. So, well, actually, Martel's invention didn't bring him any success.
Sure.
And neither, it would seem, did his photos. But he reportedly died penniless in 1955, and a large piece of his collection was left to his daughter, Jeanne. And it was Jeanne who found this photo. And I'm going to show you again, Bryce.
Oh, God, I hate even looking at it.
What do you see?
I mean, that's a man in a doorway, right? Like, that clearly.
Yes. But he's looking at Martel's direction.
Which is, like, how would he know? Why would he know the camera is there?
I know.
Oh,
so
God.
A lot of people believe that, what people have studied about this picture, it's obviously New Orleans.
Yes.
it looks like he's going into a residence. It looks like it's the early hours because there's no one on the street besides Martel and this gentleman going in. And it looks like the guy is holding a fucking axe.
Yeah, that's an axe. I mean...
That's a fucking axe. And he is dressed according to periods.
I'm really trying to, like, look at this picture and make it, like a stair rail.
Yeah.
In front of him, but it's clearly him holding an axe.
It's like, doop-a-doo.
I really want that
Turn
to be
to the
stairs.
right.
It's not stairs.
And like, he's looking here. Like, he's looking towards that direction with... It's an axe. It's a fucking axe in his hand. And he is dressed according to period. He has a bowler hat. He has a 3-piece sack suit. Like, it's scary. It gives me chills.
Which, if you think back to the 2 nieces,
yes,
that's exactly what they described.
Fits the description.
No.
So the story claims that the home into which the mysterious man is entering was determined to be the residence of Mike Pepitone, the Axeman's final victim. And ever since the image hit the web, rumors and theories began to buzz about its authenticity, which to date has not been confirmed or either denied. Mm-hmm. So that is the supernatural aftermath of the Axeman of New Orleans. And I knew, like, I thought there had to be some sort of paranormal connection
with
to
so
this.
Much violence.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just so many
in
echoes.
One of those dwellings or something. And I never thought that, oh my God, it could be the actual killer. But with such a strong presence and such a, feeling of fear and anxiousness, it's like it makes all sense.
I wonder, too, I think one of the main things about hauntings especially is that sense of unfinished business. So it to me would make sense that it's in the last home, right? The last place that he was able to commit these crimes. Like whether that's because he wasn't able to continue and wanted to, whether it's because the wife and children lived. Like there's so many possibilities, but that sense of unfinished, and again the final one was so sloppy in comparison. Oh.
Yeah, it's...
No me gusta.
No. No, señor. No.
That is crazy. And I think we talked about this with Katie when she was on, if you haven't listened to that episode. With photos, the thing that's so interesting is that you're never going to convince people who are doubters. Like, that's just not the reason for photographs, in my opinion. As someone who's, I think there's like spectrum, and I would consider myself a skeptic. We've talked a lot about that. Yeah. But I don't think I'm a doubter, because there are enough things that I can't explain that leave room for belief in my mind. And so when you see photos, of course, this photo of the Axeman, like whether it's confirmed or denied, like that's really not, I think, the purpose. You're never going to convince someone who doesn't want to be convinced. Right. But when you look at this photo, to me, as someone who's very skeptical, there's too many things that are quote unquote coincidences. Yeah. Yeah. The fact that he is looking right at the camera when the camera was known to be hidden, to me, just speaks volumes to just how creepy and terrifying and plausible that all is to me.
Exactly. And Martel got away unscathed. Like, you think like, oh, this guy's taking my picture. Back then, I don't think these people knew. No. What he had was a camera. No. Plus, he tried to, like you said, he tried to hide it from, the public. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people knew, like, what he was really doing. No. I was like, oh, I got my box with a timer.
Yeah, and, here's a little anecdote. In high school, in art, we had to do a pinhole camera project, kind of as like this is where cameras have come before we like jumped into like digital and film and all of that. And it was like a coffee can, and you like put a little, it was really cool.
Oh, we've done that in our class
Yeah, it was really fun. But anyone who's done that, as you know, you make like one mistake and it's ruined and you have to start over. Yeah. So to like get these photos is a laborious effort. He didn't just like snap a selfie and this guy happened to be there. You know what I mean? Yeah. So again, I'm not trying to convince anybody. That's not really my intention or job. But, like, again, so many things have lined up that, like, it just happened. This very old timer worked to catch this. Like, that's crazy. Right. It's too coincidental, in my mind, to be, like, not there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's so creepy.
I know.
I hate it.
And then there's also the one comment too. I even read it on one of the boards too. Someone said, oh, well, how come, if he were to have processed this photograph with all this going on, wouldn't he have turned it to the police? Well, he was traveling all over the U.S. I don't think he was in the know of what was going on.
And, when you look at this photo if you're not looking for it, it at first glance looks like a person entering
a building. That's what I thought. And then I zoomed in and I was like,
uh-oh,
that looks like a fucking axe.
Yeah. So, we're looking at it one by itself, knowing this is like probably it. But if you're looking at a stack of all of these photos, you would just gloss right over it.
Right.
Well, thank God for his daughter for preserving that.
Right. Things always surface. I tell you that.
Yes.
They always surface, and I'm a believer on that. Look at Harriet.
That's true.
I mean, look at Harriet.
Looking at you, girl.
Nickel between your legs.
That is both vulgar and good advice. The perfect combo.
Right. Yeah. Well, guys, this was our episode of the Axeman of Nolans.
That's the real murder here.
New Orleans, or as the new age, NOLA. Yes. The Axeman of NOLA. I know, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. We really do appreciate it. And of course, we can't go up and end this episode without doing our spiritual bays of the week. Yes. Holy mother flippin' ectoplasm. There's so many bays out there that Bryce and I have been crushing on, and we wanted to do 4, but we need to learn restraint, like a housewife needs to learn restraint when there's a happy hour on fucking rosé.
Yeah, do not put me down for that. I will not be learning that.
So the first one is, and I'm so happy for these guys, I just adore the crap out of them, Booze and Brews podcast. They are a kick-ass podcast about scary stories and tasty brews based out of LA. It's this podcast is such a fucking trip.
Yes.
It is a trip. It's like listening to scary stories at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater. All right, Vanessa, Melissa, and engineer Bob, they're the co-hosts. They are fucking hilarious. I laugh to the point where I pee a little.
Yeah.
I need Depends while listening to them in some episodes.
Good. That's the exact balance that you want.
I've been like going back and forth with them on social media. They're hilarious and they're so nice and they're so sweet.
I love it.
They are flipping funny. Go check them out. They're Booze and Brews podcasts. So I'm just a complete stalker with them. And then the second one is It's About Damn Crime. Yeah. Co-hosts Brittany and Justine talk about all things true crime, along with sharing creepy stranger danger stories. So these two locas are truly about that damn crime life.
Love it.
I know they're really cute, and I follow them on Instagram, and they're hilarious. They're just two cholas going loca.
Love it.
We see you all. We hear you. Trust me, we do. Your time is coming. Our little pair of crushes, and of course, we're not paid sponsors on this one company, but I have to give them a shout out because we won a little raffle with them.
Yes, we did. I feel like I never won anything.
I left their box at work. Bryce, I forgot.
That's okay. Oh my God.
It's Parabox Monthly. I wanted to give them a shout out because they've been really, really awesome. Mm-hmm. They've been really great, and it's such a unique company. Yeah. So Parabox Monthly is a paranormal puzzle subscription box. Every month, they ship out an exclusive paranormal themed shirt that contains hidden clues, and the shirts come with an informational card that explains the theme, and also many contain hints as to how to decode the shirt. So once the shirt is decoded, you click on one of their themes online through a tab, and you find the shirt theme, and then you enter the code and password. It's a process, but it's a fun process of puzzles and challenges.
Love it.
And if you're skilled enough to find the end of the puzzle or to match the puzzle by the end of the hunt, you'll be entered into a really cool drawing for additional merchandise.
Yes.
And I've actually signed up for them because I like the shirts. They're
super
dope.
Cute. Yeah.
They're fucking adorable. There's no contracts. You can cancel anytime. They have packages where it's like month to month, 3 months or 6 months, and they're actually pretty affordable if you like that. So check them out, Parabox Monthly. And guys, if you love Hollyweird Paranormal, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes. It really does help us out a lot. And it helps us become a little more visible. It helps all of us indie podcasters become a little more visible. It does help us out a lot. And I've seen you guys leave reviews. Thank you so much.
Yes, that's so awesome. Thank you so much.
I know. Heebie-jeebie babes, I see you. You're going to get your shout out soon. They left us an awesome
We had to
review.
sneak a little extra one in there.
Know.
We can't restrain.
I can't. I'm sorry.
The rosé is everywhere.
The rosé is everywhere, indeed. Well, thank you so much, guys. We will catch you guys soon. I don't know what we're going to do, Bryce.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. You guys have to just follow us on Twitter.
Yes.
And on Instagram and Facebook to figure that out. All right. We'll take it to a close.
Yes, let's do it.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Our music is by the Kinfolk Brass Band. And if you can't get enough of Hollyweird Paranormal, then stalk us on Instagram and Facebook at Hollyweird Paranormal and Twitter at HWP Podcast. And if you have a story for our Listener Stories episode, you can email us at hollyweirdparanormal@gmail.com. You can also catch up on our past episodes on iTunes, Blueberry, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, and Podknife.